So welcome everybody. I'm glad to see you. So glad to have you here. And today we are talking about Parsha Balak. And to give you a very brief recap of the primary portion of this Parsha, it deals with Balak, who's the king of Moab, hiring Balaam, who's kind of a diviner, and he hires Balaam to curse the Israelites. That's the whole purpose. And with some back and forth, Balaam eventually sets out riding his donkey to go to Balaam, to Moab. And the donkey plays a pivotal role in this whole episode. And eventually Balaam gets to Moab, and he does not curse the Israelites as he was hired to do, but instead blesses the Israelites. And there's a lot of, stuff with all of that, but we will just focus on this part of the Parsha. There's another little piece at the end, which we're not even touching. So for me, there were two primary themes. One is opening your eyes to see, actually opening your eyes to increase your awareness. So while traveling, 3 times Balaam's donkey stops because this donkey sees an angel with a sword in the middle of the roadway. Each time the donkey stops, Balaam whips the donkey. The 3rd time the donkey stops and Balaam whips the donkey is given the gift of speech and turns to Balaam and says, "Why are you whipping me? I have been your faithful donkey for all these years, and you shouldn't be whipping me." And with that, Balaam ends up seeing the angel. So Balaam's awareness increases. He goes on, whoops, sorry about that. He goes on to Moab, and he and Balak go to several sites where they can look down on the Israelite encampment. And the first 2 sites they go to, Balaam looks at the Israelite encampment and then goes off to kind of notice what God wants him to say, because the deal here is that Balaam is only going to speak the words that God puts in his mouth. The 3rd time they move to another location, and the 3rd time Balaam sees the Israelite encampment much more fully. He sees that this encampment is on a lush oasis. He notices how the tents are all laid out, and he no longer needs to ask God what to say. He breaks out into this incredible poem that includes lines that may sound familiar to you. "How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. Ma tovu." And at the end of this really lovely poem, he says, the last 2 lines of the poem are, blessed are they who bless you, accursed are they who curse you." So Balaam delivers this amazing blessing to the people Israel. So that's one whole theme for me, this seeing more clearly, maybe seeing the truth. The other thing that's really of interest to me in this Parsha is how we change curses into blessings. So if we think of curses as words or actions that separate us from each other, and blessings as words or actions that foster connection I think the whole thing makes a little bit more sense. So to illustrate this, I'm going to share a story that is adapted from a book, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry, by Jack Cornfield. And this is a story that he has in detail in the book. And it's an ancient Swedish story, traditional Swedish story. So the story is about a princess whose name is Aris, and she's betrothed to a very fearful and scary looking dragon. And when she finds out that she has to marry this dragon, she's terrified. And she goes and speaks to a wise old woman who tells her that indeed she has to go ahead and marry the dragon, but that there are certain instructions that she has for that wedding night. And she could approach him properly. So the instructions include wearing 10 beautiful gowns, one on top of the other. So the wedding takes place. It's the wedding night. The dragon takes her to the bedchamber, hoping to consummate this wedding, this marriage. And as he approaches her, she stops him and she says, I have to take off one layer at a time before I am able to give myself to you. And with each layer that I take off, you also need to take off a layer. He says, okay, reasonable deal. So she takes off her first layer and he claws off his outer layer of scaly armor. And it's a little painful, but it's okay. She continues taking off the next layer. He takes off the next layer, clawing the layers off himself. By the fifth layer, he's in tears because this is very, very painful. But he continues. And she's noticing that as each layer comes off of him, his skin is getting softer. And by the last layer, she takes off her 10th dress and he takes off his last layer, and he's this beautiful, wonderful looking, nice man, soft skin and all. And he's so relieved to have the ancient spell of being a dragon released. And they live happily ever after. So I love this story. You know, it's her ability to see underneath all of this, his ability to see underneath all of his armor as well. Because we all have some protective armor, right? So how do we see clearly? How do we see the truth in ourselves and in others? How do we transform what is first perceived as a curse into a blessing? Shefa Gold talks about the donkey in this parsha as symbolically being part of our own body. After all, Balaam was sitting on the donkey, so it's an extension of his body. And that maybe we really need to tune into our body, as Balaam needed to listen to the donkey, in order to really open our eyes, our heart, our minds, and take in information from a variety of sources, especially paying attention to clues from our bodies. So in thinking about this, I really became aware and was able to articulate, maybe for the first time, that when I'm really tense, I know that my shoulders can ride all the way up to my ears, and I'll feel it in my back and in other parts of my body. But there are clues for when the tension is more subtle. And I realized that I feel tension around my eyes or my jaw. It's more subtle before those shoulders rise up to my ears. And when I have tension around my eyes and my jaw, when I really tune into it, I notice that maybe my heart feels a little constricted and maybe my belly feels a little tight. So when I'm able to soften my gaze and release my jaw, and sometimes just start opening and closing my mouth, I'm more capable then of softening my heart and letting go of that tightness in my gut. And when I can do this, I notice that I'm less judgmental. And when I'm less judgmental, that leads me to a greater sense of connection and compassion. So it's really important for me, and I think for all of us, to really tune into our bodies. So as we sit today, I'm going to invite us to do a bit of a body scan, and we'll also have some quiet time. So I invite you to take your seat and feel yourself really being supported wherever it is that you're sitting. And for today's body scan, we're going to start with the top of the head. So we can think of our bodies as an ice cream cone, and the top of our heads is the ice cream, and it's melting. Just let that melting happen. And I invite you to bring your attention to the area around your eyes. Just notice what's happening around your eyes and how this feels. And whether your eyes are opened or closed, look down. So even inside your closed eyelids, just gaze down. And see if that helps the area of the eyes soften. And now bring your attention to your jaw. Can you have your teeth separate from one another, not touching? A little space between your upper teeth and your lower teeth. And you think of your jaw as unhooking. And now let's bring our attention to our necks. Is your neck really sitting right on top of your spine? Or is it pitched forward a little bit? Notice how it feels different if you're pitching forward or if you're right on top of your spine. Simply paying attention to sensations. And now let's move to our shoulders, sometimes called the shudders. Are they down or are they up? Are your right shoulder and left shoulder in line with each other? Just simply noticing, paying attention. Now let's look at the arms as one whole unit. Are your arms resting comfortably? And what about your hands? Where are they? Are they in your lap? Are they in your thighs? Are they by your side? Wherever they are, that's fine. But notice how they feel. Are they palm up or palm down? There's no right or wrong. There's simply awareness, noticing. And now let's move to our torso, the whole torso, front and back. How's that? Are you sitting with your spine in its natural curve? Or not? Do you feel tightness or looseness or any other sensations in your chest and in your belly? And what about the back? How's that feeling? And now to your pelvis, that place between the legs and the torso. Are you feeling even contact with the chair or the cushion? And your legs? And your feet? Simply noticing. And now taking a deep breath, taking your whole body as one unit. and see what you see. Notice what you notice. As you slowly and gently come back to the room, I am going to read Your History is Here Inside Your Body by Rumi. Your history is here inside your body. Your body is a storehouse of learnings, of feelings, thoughts, and experiences, only waiting to be invited to reveal your treasures to yourself. Help yourself as you let the learning emerge and take shape. You can appreciate the wisdom of the body, each cell alive with spirit, emotion, and intelligence, ready to help you at any moment, always with you and for you.